Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Software Plaza podcast. And we hope you like the conversations that we have here on a weekly basis. Go and check out all of our previous conversations on our website, softwareplaza.com, and you can even catch us on all of the podcasting platforms as well, and on YouTube. So, yeah, so go and check us out there. Today I have with me Jeff Leader, who is the CTO at DOT Security. And DOT Security is squarely focused on security in the cloud, and they don't, Jeff was telling me they don't look at one particular niche or segment within security. They try to solve for a broad range of company types, and he'll tell us more about it. But we're going to be hearing from Jeff about just DOT Security's approach to cloud security today, and some of the things that they're seeing, and just some of the key ideas that he'd like to share with us today. So, Jeff, it's great to have you with us. Thanks for joining. Really looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. To get us started, I'd just like to know a bit about you, Jeff, and just your journey up to DOT Security.
Sure. Yeah. So I really kind of started my career in IT security as a systems administrator. I spent many years sort of managing all facets of a smaller IT environment spanning multiple sites with a couple hundred users. And at that point, virtualization was sort of the forefront of IT technology. So worked on just all things IT. Was an interesting time. At that point, I was told that I was pretty much responsible for everything with a plug in it. I didn't realize how true that would be until the coffee machine broke, and they said, "Jeff, grab your screwdriver," right? So definitely, just fully immersed in IT and supporting an environment as a solo resource there. Dealt with all things security at that time, which back then looked quite a bit different. A ransomware incident was, you've got a singular encrypted endpoint that you can wipe and reprovision, and it didn't hit the network or deal with any exfiltration or anything like that back then. I pivoted from that sysadmin role into a field network engineering role at an MSP. So I went from internal to consulting and supporting multiple different environments. Definitely got a lot more exposure to a lot broader set of industries and requirements and just areas of expertise, and kind of helped to build a startup within that IT MSP space into a much larger team within an organization, and eventually stepped into a DevOps architect role. So I had, even in my sysadmin days, where I had not the biggest IT budget, gotten pretty scrappy with being able to develop documentation and internal tooling and automation and scripting, and especially embracing free and open source software, and kind of building and maintaining tooling, and that lent itself well in that startup space to developing and bootstrapping a lot of tech to help grow that team. So as I stepped into that DevOps architect role, sort of expanded out with a group of individuals to help build pipelines and maintain tooling and support the resources that were supporting our clients in that MSP space, all the while really kind of getting sucked into those situations where security incidents would occur, and we had to kind of put on our thinking caps and work around those issues as well. So eventually transitioned into a director of security services role, basically built out the security consultancy and cybersecurity offerings adjacent to those IT services that were being provided, which then eventually spun off as DOT Security. So I had a brief stint there as CEO. I am, happy to announce that I am a recovering CEO at this point. I'm focused on, as a CTO at this point, really the technologies that we use to deliver our services to our clients, and ensuring that we're secure and leveraging the right things internally, and managing things well and effectively, so that we can continue to use technology to provide really good cybersecurity services to our clients.
Mhm. Great. Yeah, that's an interesting story. And yeah, sounds like you've seen the evolution from hardware to software. And what are some of the key things you're noticing today as we deal with software security? Coming from your roots of starting with hardware, what are some of the things you think are the same, and what are some of the things you find are different today?
Well, I guess sadly, the stuff that's the same is a lot of the lingering technology that organizations are still depending on, that still exists within their environments, but oftentimes is the stuff that will wind up on the vulnerability scanners as the things that are just kind of stuck sitting around that the organization is dependent on because they haven't completed migration away. Of course, you've got, you know, room for on-prem servers and infrastructure, and endpoints, haven't gone anywhere. But, going from, traditional bare metal to virtualized to containerized workloads, and going from on-prem to cloud, more than anything, I would just say, the change has been rapid, and there's more kind of sprawl today than ever before. It seems like, you know, I could pretty much keep a handle on things pretty well. We had a handful of SaaS services. The on-prem stuff was my domain as a systems administrator, but over time, technology has just exploded. And I think, part of that is just, it's been the journey of sort of shifting left and adoption of DevOps methodologies, where teams are empowered more than ever before, where just this proliferation of technology, it creates this information and technology overload. So it's been an incredible journey, and a thing to be a part of, just with information technology. But I'd say, more than ever today, there's just kind of sprawl.
Mm. Yeah, I heard you bringing up a couple of issues, like you just said, but also technical debt and just the pace of change and just organizations struggling to keep up with that pace. Are there any examples that come to your mind firsthand that you've seen from working with multiple customers or in your previous organizations where these issues where in the real world they were big issues? And can you describe some of those issues and the pains, the challenges that these organizations are going through?
Yeah, I would say, it's been only even just in the last few years where, companies know that security is an issue, and that they need to have a really solid digital transformation strategy, but they just can't get away from, as you alluded to, that technical debt, and in many cases still don't even know where to start. That's something that we see a lot of executives. They want to know, what's my score? How do I stand against my peers? Am I going to get hacked? Right. And those are not easy things to answer if you're not applying the right methodologies, bringing the right resources to the table, and using the right technology to understand, what are your assets? Where are your gaps? What are the big risks that, if you don't address them, are really going to hit you hard?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah. Could you talk about shift left, something that you mentioned as well, and why that's important and what it means to these particular challenges? How does shift help connect to these challenges of technical debt and sprawl and the pace of change?
Yeah. So, you know, we have certainly a lot of clients that we work with, who have development teams, as well as resources that are internal to us, or part of our broader set of organizations that we're a part of here. And they have sort of had to learn in that development space all of that historical knowledge and awareness that, traditionally IT personnel had in order to be able to build and provision infrastructure, and codify that process. And, that unlocks a lot of awesome capability. If you can actually deploy the code into environments where, it is consistent with your development environment, that is incredible. But also, along with that, you don't necessarily bring all of that experience and awareness that a traditional IT or IT security or cybersecurity professional would have. So I think it's forced a lot of developers to have to pick up a lot of additional awareness and skill that, isn't necessarily, traditionally intrinsic to the concept of development. If you look back, the silo of IT stands it up, and dev goes to deploy and it breaks, and the fighting continues, and meanwhile security shows up every so often and says you can't do any of this. I think it's a great development that now more than ever there's that empowerment for people to be able to rapidly deploy and provision. But yeah, if you don't have the right resources and you don't have training and awareness, and in my opinion, what you really need is dedicated resources within that development team who know how to secure things and where to even deploy that, and that entire process. Yeah, without that, you're just kind of building a very hollow core of applications and software that just create this larger sprawl and proliferation of potential risk.
Interesting. And you guys, solving for security for various types of organizations have seen quite a broad range of different kinds of teams and cultures that you work with. What are some of the things you've noticed as you work with clients? What are some of the kinds of challenges that you see in terms of the teams that you work with? What kind of teams have a certain kind of challenge, whereas a different team has a different kind of challenge? And what's your approach to working with these kinds of teams? Could you give us some, in broad strokes, just some of the kind of team culture that you see in different organizations and the different challenges that are related to them?
Sure. Yeah. So one thing that we see, it's a pretty common theme. Pretty much everywhere you look, personnel and technology fields seem like a little ragged, a little worn down, sort of expected to do more with less than ever before. So resource contention is certainly a major common theme. Organizations who seem to be doing it well, they recognize and address that need by ensuring that they're investing in resources there, and they've got business analysts and project managers that are engaged in helping to develop and prioritize, and they're aligning initiatives and efforts to broader business goals and objectives. So have seen the harmony that can come when all those pieces are moving well together, and the chaos that ensues when you've got teams just kind of spinning their wheels, or just expected to move mountains with little sand shovels. Beyond that, I think we've kind of touched on just sort of the sprawl, and I guess you've got a lot of hybrid environments where you've got on-prem and cloud infrastructure and multi-cloud deployments, and you're kind of there's oftentimes maybe an assumption or an expectation that the resources that are there supporting all of that and building on top of it just sort of know how all of that works. And in reality, you can't expect everyone to just be that magical unicorn who can manage all of that stuff and understand fundamentally how it all works and make it all fit together seamlessly. So some of the more effective resources that I've seen out there are, they're kind of those generalists who can go deep and help support and fill the gaps where maybe you've got some specializations within teams or organizations, but you need to fill the gaps between them. And those are really, really valuable resources on teams when you can have personnel who are able to kind of put all those different silos or different pieces together and bridge the multiple clouds and pieces of infrastructure. But yeah, I guess it all of this is to say that we've of course been kind of building in the technology space towards more and more adoption of AI and LLMs and now agents, and that also represents just this next evolution of complexity and stuff that there's an expectation around awareness and adoption and understanding, and where I think there's obviously going to be a lot of additional time and training and development of resources in that direction, but some new jobs and responsibilities and requirements that are emerging as a result.
Mm-hmm. Could you tell us a bit more about that in terms of the AI and LLM and all of these, the machine learning, the new kinds of models that are coming up? So are you saying that, you're looking at ways to kind of use these to improve the security posture of organizations, or are you thinking about like organizations that are actually running these models internally or externally? Well, how do they run these models? Are they secure? Um, in what way, in what context did you mention them? And could you give us some more details about this?
Sure. Yeah. Kind of in all of the areas you just mentioned, I feel like it's a relevant to have discussion and consideration related to AI. So it seems like there is that trend and that push for every organization to be adopting AI. There seems to be an expectation or assumption that if businesses aren't hopping on board with that right now today already, that they're already behind the competition. I think certainly just individuals leveraging generative AI to enhance day-to-day performance, developers in writing code and the whole concept of vibe coding, just professionals in general throwing ideas or generating feedback from those chat interfaces. I think that's very, very commonplace. I think the trend and discussion around agentic AI and the idea that there will be these agent buddies, and that professionals will kind of be managing the agents to a degree within the organization is pretty fascinating. Microsoft recently released an article talking about that and covered some really interesting ideas. In the cybersecurity space more specifically, I've seen some very interesting developments recently related to AI. So, in the areas of sort of consulting organizations on risk associated with it, that common traditional theme of what data do you have, what are your assets, what can access that data, is it sensitive? Well, now we're talking about plugging additional systems into that data, and so now that unlocks so much potential, but it also unlocks the ability for attackers to potentially exploit the agents or the LLM interfaces just as easily as they can an end user. So that's something that the idea of prompt injection and unlocking access for LLMs to plug into and pull data from different potentially sensitive sources is certainly something that almost looks a little bit like an evolution of the idea of social engineering, but engineer the agent, not the person. Something that we've kind of seen emerging recently, just in the news, or even just like slop squatting is something I kind of recently read up on an article about that, where apparently code being generated by different LLMs is actually hallucinating packages, and then you have individuals running that code, and attackers are aware that those packages don't actually exist, so they're publishing malicious packages that are then being pulled down and executed. So that and dark AI are certainly some things that are at the forefront of sort of attacker methods of leveraging AI, and something that we've been on the lookout for here. As a security services provider, we're offering consulting in the compliance and the risk management space. So our VCSOs, VCMs, they're working with businesses and helping to track not just the the technical debt, but really the cyber risk associated with that organization and their compliance and gaps related to compliance. And then our red team, they're providing penetration testing services and capabilities. And our blue team, the SOC, they're providing that detection response capability. A lot of the newer tooling that we're leveraging as an organization has this same capability embedded. At the very least, it's machine learning, and we've got LLM components and generative AI aspects in a lot of the tooling that we're leveraging here as well. Just because the fact of the matter is, as this sort of explosion and proliferation of AI tech is adopted, it's going to get picked up on the red team, or sorry, the attacker side, and leveraged for bad. And we need to be able to pick up and use that same tooling if we're going to continue to provide really effective services and put up a good defense and detection capability for our clients.
Wow, I think that's a fantastic response about just the various angles that you need to look at this from, and I think touches on even what you started off saying, that things change really fast. And I think with AI especially, that's true. It's just been maybe 2 years or less since ChatGPT came on the scene, and and already AI is center stage in so many aspects of daily life, and even just things like cybersecurity. And so you really, gave us different aspects of it, how, attackers use it, how even organizations should be leveraging it. So that was great. I want to ask, following up to that, do you see that when it comes to AI and, about how to secure these AI models that organizations run, or even how do we integrate AI into our cybersecurity strategy? Do you find that your customers are more eager to adopt, and they're coming to you and saying, we have these issues, help us with this, and they're taking the lead? Or do you find that, they're kind of passive and they're kind of waiting and watching, or not as quick to pull the trigger, and you find that you as an expert, as a cloud security company, you need to go and like tell them, hey, you're doing these things, but you need to think about AI because these things are happening, and you need to do something about them. Where do you think, is it more of a push or a pull?
Um, it's a little bit of both.
Mhm.
I'd say how it's primarily manifest itself for the majority of our clients. It's really their IT leadership or executive leadership approaching, especially our consulting resources, and saying, hey, we're thinking about doing this. What are the risks? Should we be adopting or developing policies around this? If so, what should they look like? Can you even provide us, templates for that? And there have been quite a few questions that have come across, like, should we even, dip our toe in this water? And if so, like, what are we facing down here, right? So um,
Mm.
there are some client organizations who, especially those who, they're managing software products or platforms where they're already using it in multiple different ways.
Mhm.
And for those clients, their use cases and their risk, their appetite and register, look quite a bit different than other organizations who, the furthest they've gone with it is, maybe they've got a Copilot integration or licensed within, their Azure tenant, and they've got that where some or all of their users are leveraging that technology just to improve their day to day. So it does vary quite a bit. Certainly, it's been something that we need to keep an eye on. It's interesting, looking at how organizations are legitimately adopting it, and then also looking at it from the lens of, how is it being exploited by attackers, either as something that is presented by an organization, to the public, where an attacker is trying to kind of get in that way, or being leveraged directly by an attacker to help develop new malware or C2 variants, or in at least one case that I've recently heard about, have not personally seen its use, but apparently there's a dark web companion, dark AI tool set that not only will help craft malware and suggest, methods of exploitation, and be able to capture and sort of steer attackers in the right direction, but is actually able to perform some, minor agentic type of activities where it can even go out and proactively attempt exploitation of targets specified by an attacker. So, lots of different use cases and areas, but as far as the adoption and how organizations are leveraging it, it seems like, the more complex and fully adopted organizations that I've seen have it as components of larger pieces of infrastructure, or in many cases automation, where it's performing some functions and maybe offering up some additional insight, as well as, in the development space. Haven't seen too many, full-on vibe coders out there, but have certainly seen and heard feedback from a lot of developers where, they're able to, really build a lot more rapidly, or kind of brainstorm off of an AI assistant way more effectively than, traditionally they may have been able to just accomplish independently, or through other forms of research.
Mhm. All right, interesting. Yeah, I can tell that, from your response that you're following the agentic AI trend quite closely, and how AI is being used by attackers as well. So quite interesting, some of the things that you mentioned. Coming back to dot security and just its approach, I was wondering if you could show us the different services that dot security offers, and just your approach to cybersecurity. I think you probably have a few slides or a walkthrough of sorts for us.
Yeah, sure. I could just pull up briefly. So just have, and these are a couple of slides that we've used in the past, to just sort of highlight at a very high level the concepts of the services and the technology that we're using here. So let me see if I can just share out. All right. I take it you're seeing this screen here now?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So, and we're constantly, developing new offerings and capabilities. But, they largely focus in these 5 key areas of service. So, reducing cyber risk,
Mhm.
validating cyber efforts, improving cyber maturity, meeting compliance needs, and managing cyber events. So, as far as the reducing cyber risk, that's really where our virtual chief information security officer, risk management services shine. So, kind of maintaining those risk registers for client organizations, helping to track and communicate and, steer organizations in the right direction regarding here's the risk that we've been made aware of through the various sources of information that we have, and through the conversations that we have on a regular basis as part of the service. Now, how can we prioritize and address and plan to mitigate those as part of that roadmap and the ongoing strategy. Vulnerability management, of course, we're scanning from every different perspective we possibly can. So, on the agent, across the network, on the network perimeter from outside, as well as against web applications and APIs and the like, so that we can get as holistic a picture of, those vulnerabilities and incorporate those into the bigger picture of managing risk. On the, validation of cyber efforts. So that's really where, a lot of our assessment offerings or capabilities reside. So The offensive security testing traditionally has been something that we've done, as a pen test, and it's more of a project-based, activity that, within a month or so we'll evaluate either, full infrastructure or web applications, just kind of depending on what that scope looks like. And that's an area where more recently we've adopted autonomous penetration testing technology. So get that stood up, have that persistent in environment, have it run on a recurring basis, and then back that by a penetration tester who's fully familiar with the latest techniques and fully certified, and have them armed with the information of that tool set and be able to push it and kind of seek further insights from what it's able to derive, and then package that up in a report and really highlight weaknesses and areas of concern. That's really powerful. From there, improving cyber maturity. So basically just, evaluating organizations. We've adopted CIS as a standard for maturity tracking as an organization. So that's where, a lot of really good prescriptive controls and in areas of focus for organizations to adopt to make sure they're kind of being really holistic with, understanding and improving their maturity over time, which really folds back nicely into reducing cyber risk over time as well. In the compliance space, that's where, we'll perform gap analysis. Our primary focus is actually CMMC. So helping organizations largely in the manufacturing space ensure that they're properly protecting the intellectual property that they may be handling that would be considered controlled unclassified information. And then lastly, managing cyber events. So this is where our SOC team is really going to shine. The detection and response capabilities. That's another area where we're in the process of innovating and adopting newer technology that has more AI and ML components embedded into it, shifting a little bit more in the direction of XDR and agent-based and fully integrated tech to build on top of the foundation of network detection, response, and SIM capabilities that we've offered since the start. So to kind of like dive into that a little bit further, it's just, have kind of the different types of information that we'll ingest here, how we have the various engines in place to help kind of chew all of the billions of events that the SOC team is ingesting as just individual or discrete logs or API events, and then actually parsing through and triggering the detection and investigation on that stuff to then lead into incident response activities where necessary, and then of course continue to optimize and improve things and help steer clients in the direction of better resilience, faster detection and response, and major incident avoidance over time.
All right, fascinating. And could you tell us a bit about your approach to selecting tooling for these different, priorities that you have? Do you have a particular, bias towards tools, or are you completely unbiased in terms of tools? Are you opinionated in like the kind of tools you'd like to use, or are you very open to listening to what your clients want to use and help them use those? What's your approach there?
Yeah, so little bit of all of the above,
Mhm.
including the bias. But
Mhm.
in originally kind of building out the security practice starting back in 2018, there's Momentum Cyber, and Optiv is another one where they have this visualization of security vendors and products, and they kind of group it in different categories and offerings in the cybersecurity space. And you look at the thing, and it is just mind-boggling how much technology and products and services there are in the cybersecurity space. So it back in 2018 set out to kind of select from those categories and identify and apply what we kind of knew about where our clients needed the most help and where we weren't providing under the banner of traditional IT or IT security, like those areas where we knew we could bring something to market and provide services that would help shift the needle and really lean in on detection, response, and consulting more effectively than we were doing just as an IT service provider. And in going through that process, probably evaluated close to 800 products and vendors over the course of a year. Now, a lot of those, it was reach out and never get a response back and check them off the list type of thing. But lots and lots of conversations and evaluation found that there were a lot of vendors out there who maybe had some really compelling technology, but didn't necessarily have the resources to educate the marketplace about how incredible it was. And others who maybe had all the capacity to educate the marketplace about the vaporware that they were eager to develop once they actually started to land some sales type of thing. In the time of evaluating all of that, developed a bit of an internal framework to say, here's how we take, and sort of define what are the primary requirements. What is the focus and key areas of emphasis and what we're trying to kind of build out as far as a product and services to provide on top of that product, or what are the gaps that we see in the market, and what are the means to address them, and then from there sort of start with a broader list and narrow that down to top contenders, and then get serious about actually implementing and evaluating and finding methods to say, okay, you say your product is the best in the market to do XYZ. We're going to go ensure that we can do XYZ, or we can evaluate whether or not it does XYZ effectively, and then compare those against one another. So, EDR technology, and NGAV or EPP back, in 2018, as the kind of the primary naming convention was at the time. We didn't want to just pull that and install it on an endpoint and run an icar.txt file to see if it detected that signature in the file. We wanted to really push it further. So in developing out the kind of the penetration testing services, we had a couple of different C2 and kind of post-exploit tools that we were using at the time, and we actually ran and detonated those payloads and tested various things on a handful of endpoints, running these things side by side to see which ones are really effective and which ones aren't. And for those that aren't, can we bring that to the attention of the vendor, and how do they respond? And all of the other things. What does support look like, and what pricing, of course, is an aspect, and does that align with the way that we deliver services and want to be able to bill our clients, and even just like API integration, and what does that look like, and can we integrate it directly or natively with the other tooling that we're adopting, or can we programmatically interact with it and kind of glue between the different systems that we're leveraging. So lots and lots of kind of trial and error in developing out the stack and the different pieces of technology. We've certainly leaned more towards kind of consolidated platforms more recently, and that seems to be generally something that a lot of the major players in the cybersecurity space want to lean towards. And just there seems to be a lot of consolidation, especially in the service provider space as well, with tooling and technology. So that the adoption of point solutions that are really ideally suited to do this, that, or the other is kind of where we've come from. More recently, we have managed to find some platforms that seem to do a lot of things extremely well, or as well as anything else that we can test, which is fantastic to see. So that is certainly something that we want to continue to be able to leverage and adopt, while also avoiding the pitfalls of we don't want to be shackled to a specific vendor and that's it, and now we're basically just a service provider on top of that singular platform or vendor either. So we're trying to avoid lock-in, but also be able to continue to adopt and test and evaluate new technology. So that strategy has actually improved as we've had additional resources join the team. We've had more insights and just really valuable perspective and ways now that we approach the definition and review of charters and sign off and like, post initiative closeouts and that type of thing that we didn't have when we were in, just full scale startup mode. But yeah, I mean, that process certainly, I mean, if you're going to do it right, you can't just throw a dart at the wall or Google and pick the top 3 and hope for the best with the one that has the coolest website. You have to take it a lot deeper than that if you're going to be successful, because a bad choice in the service provider space, and especially where we operate, where we're establishing relationships or partnerships with our clients where these are 3 to 5 year contracts, and we're tying the products and the services into those. We want to make sure that we're planning for the future, and we're not tying ourselves to technology that will fail us and fail our customers in the process.
Yeah, wow, that was a really detailed, well thought out response, and really gives some good background about your approach, how it started, and what you advise and how you approach suggesting solutions for your clients. So yeah, thanks for that. The last question I want to ask is, you mentioned consolidated solutions is something that you lean towards recently. One recent development that came to my mind when you said that was the Google acquisition of Wiz, which was quite a big deal recently. And someone recently on the podcast as well spoke about that, and they said that it's a major event. And what's your view on that? What do you think it means for you as a security professional and for the space? What does it tell us?
So yeah, gosh, I think I must have, shame on me. I think I missed the article where that was officially went through. I heard that Google put in, an unprecedented deal on the table for Wiz to walk away. So I mean, I guess good for Google for establishing that. But yeah, I mean, Wiz certainly been something that's been on our radar as, incredible CNAP, kind of really led the pack in the space of that cloud security posture management and just, that overall capability of securing the cloud. So not shocked that, Google or some other big player didn't wind up, establishing that relationship. I think, there's plenty of other possible players in that space, some upstarts. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Microsoft has their own embedded CNAP and supposedly supports multi-cloud. I have not seen it plugged in and operated super effectively across AWS and GCP, but that's not to say that it's not really effective or capable there. I think CNAP is interesting. It's similar to just traditional vulnerability management, or pen trusting type tooling, where you can plug it in or you can point it at the assets. You still need people at the end of the day who understand how to interpret those results, and be able to actually make some sort of meaningful decision from them and be able to address them. Wiz is certainly one that provides some great guidance or direction as far as how to go actually meaningfully address the issues that are identified. But I would expect to see more kind of forefront technology offered by Google and Wiz as part of that overall offering, and have some expectations that we're going to see more technology that focuses on CNAP with an emphasis on AI and other emerging technology over time. So yeah, I mean, it's certainly, it's big news in the tech space, but kind of curious to see how the tech and these giants continue to evolve.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that was a really interesting conversation. We're out of time now. Before you go, though, just a question to get to know you a little bit, Jeff. I want to ask, what would your alternate career path be if not for your job in tech?
So, yeah, appreciate the question. I've always enjoyed playing music and video games, but couldn't see myself necessarily making a career out of either. Wanted to be a paleontologist when I was a kid, but I'm not that into travel, so I don't think that would pan out for me.
Mhm.
I actually have some family that's involved with public works, and I've always found that to be very admirable. So I think that would probably be, a pursuit that I would consider if technology were off the table.
What's that? Public works, is it?
Yeah, yeah. So, helping out with community, maintaining
Oh,
streets, and trees, and water, and just kind of generally keeping communities safe and running properly.
oh, okay. Wow. That would be really meaningful. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Great. Thanks for joining us today, Jeff. Time flew by. It was a wonderful conversation. Thanks for all that you shared. Really insightful stuff there. And I'm sure all of our listeners and viewers found it very fascinating. So if all of our listeners and viewers, if you'd like to get to know more about Dot Security, head over to their website, just search for them, Dot Security, and get in touch with them to talk about how they can help with your cloud, your cybersecurity. And as you heard from Jeff, they're not about any particular single tool or any particular approach or any particular industry, but they work across tools, across approaches, across industries, across whatever size of company that you are. So get in touch with them and tune in again for the next episode here at the Software Plaza podcast. Thanks, Jeff. See you around. Thanks for
Great.
joining us. And
Thank you.
thanks to all of our viewers for tuning in. Bye bye.
Thank you.